Hello, my name is Chloe Folan, and today's video has been prompted, would be the best word, prompted by overlapping queries from two prior videos, and also that feeds into some queries that I've received over my upcoming Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 workshop, meaning it's all tying in. So I thought it would be best to create a video that's as short as possible, that just simply addresses the main queries that are cropping up that all tie in. So bear with me, please. I will keep this as short as possible and really do my best to bullet point answering these questions and explaining how it all ties in. The title of today's video is the Devas of Earth, Air, Fire, and Water, and the Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 techniques. What I'm about to address has been caused by questions by the eternal relevance of the Rainbow Bridge techniques video that you might want to reference, and also the authenticity video that I created, meaning what I'm about to address over the Devas of Earth, Air, Fire, and Water, and how that ties in with the Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 techniques, were questions from what was discussed in those two videos. The first query I would like to address is I was asked, could I just better explain what I meant by triangling the square, the solar divine feminine triangle, and working that out through your square, meaning with the Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 techniques, because of the way the Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 techniques deeply heal and clear the central vertical channel properly, which allows the chakras to sit into place, that helps to induce weaving the personality service thread with Antakarana thread weaving that weaves up from the solar plexus, up through the vertical central channel, up through the soul star, to the abstract mind point of your higher celestial triad chakra, which is the chakra above the soul star. When you fully consummated building to your triad chakra, which is fully completing the third stage of building the Rainbow Bridge from an Antakarana thread weaving perspective, at that point in your development, the physical, emotional, and mental bodies become more soul infused. They carry more light. They hold more light, no matter what you are or are not doing. And like I was saying in the previous video, triangles are a feminine symbol. So when you have fully built to your triad chakra, and that process can start as a part of completing Rainbow Bridge Phase 1, or you might need to do a little bit of Rainbow Bridge Phase 2 work to fully consummate building to your triad. But at that point, it creates a subjective triangle within your form bodies, meaning the triangle I was discussing with soul fusion is a more soul-infused physical, emotional, and mental body, meaning that's the triangle. And your will is the center point within that triangle, meaning personal will becoming more aligned, because fully building to your triad helps to heal a deeper connection between your conscious and subconscious minds. So just to be very clear, the divine feminine solar triangle I was discussing is more soul-infused physical, emotional, and mental bodies. That's the triangle, with will being the center point in that triangle, meaning will, personal will, your personal fire, being better aligned being a better observer of those form worlds around you, having a better personal center will point to work from physically, emotionally, and mentally. Will being aligned, being the center point observer, physical, emotional, mental. And as far as working that through your square, of course, your foundations are still square, but it would be my opinion that on a personal level and a mystical level, that doing enough esoteric clearing of the bodies to bring in that soul-infused triangle, meaning fully building to your triad, that encouraging someone to work with the Rainbow Bridge techniques to at least get to that point helps someone personally work with themselves in a more coherent manner, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And also, if you want to start then discussing mystical approaches and mystical teachings, that being fully built to your triad and having that soul-infused triangle to work from as your center, that creates a better foundation for working with the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water. Meaning, as within, so without. Meaning, more healed and cleared internal vehicles and better personal alignment allows for you to create a more harmonious connection with the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water. Allows for you to more work with those Devas with more fluidity and from a better center point within you. Meaning, anyone asking me, Chloe, I would like to deepen my connection to the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water, whether it's for personal reasons or mystical reasons. If someone asks me that, what would you recommend for helping to deepen that connection or clear that connection or bring in more harmony and better communication with that type of connection? Well, my answer would be the Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 techniques, because of how well it heals and clears the central vertical channel, aligns the chakras, and helps to start inducing you properly building to your triad chakra, giving you that subjective energetic triangle to be able to work more harmoniously with your square foundations and working more clearly with your square foundations, or working with the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water. I had a query as well, or two actually, over Chloe, what would you recommend for working with the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water? And that's a vast topic, which I won't be able to cover with trying to keep this video short, but to keep that brief, there are many ways to work with the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water. I know people that do that directly, Devas of earth, air, fire, and water. I know people that would do that through the angels of the 4 quarters. I know of people that would do that through dragons. So once again, that's a very personal question. And now we're coming back to authenticity. Meaning, I do have a private course that I teach for people wanting to deepen working with the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water. And it's a very good foundation basic course. And the reason why it's just a foundation basic course is I believe that as you heal and clear the vehicles and then put proper basics into practice, then that's all you really need. Meaning, as you heal and clear the vehicles, meaning the physical, emotional, mental bodies, and bring in and help to induce a proper ascension pathway, that when that's being done properly and coherently, that you don't need much to then create a deeper connection to the Deva of earth or the Deva of fire, meaning you just start to think about your connection to that great life, or the ceremony that you may have for connecting to that great life. And it gently starts to precipitate. And that happens for two reasons, meaning people that would do Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 minimum first before doing those types of mystical teachings with me, because of the divine feminine solar triangle, find that it really helps to create a deeper connection and more fluidity, because the bodies are more healed and soul infused for working with those great lives. I'll say it again, as within, so without. The personal condition of the bodies does reflect the types of contact that can be made and how well that type of contact can be made and translated and received when working with those great lives. So even though I might have worded that very differently, meaning triangling your square, the fundamentals of what I was discussing shouldn't be news, meaning from how I would authentically teach, what I would know to be true, proper esoteric teachings, that if somebody wants to mystically deepen their connection to the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water, that a proper technique for cleansing the vehicles and creating better personal alignment, that is given to a student first, and that is worked with first before giving those types of teachings. My way of doing that is asking somebody to minimum have completed either Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 or Phase 1 of Ray Path Healing before someone would be able to avail of my private course of working with the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water. And it's to make sure the bodies are healed, cleared, and aligned internally, to help induce starting to build to triad, gently clean up and align the internal condition for then better external connection and precipitation, and just better fluidity in general. So that was the first query that I wanted to address, meaning just explaining the solar divine feminine triangle a bit more. Connected with that, I was asked a little bit more about that thread, about that service thread. The other reason why I love to introduce people to the Rainbow Bridge techniques, no matter what the motivation, many people have different callings for what brings them to the Rainbow Bridge techniques. But no matter what the mystical motivation, whether it's just proper ascension, whether it's deepening a spiritual pathway, helping to, knit together all the pieces you've gathered if you have a very eclectic path, getting in a bit more deeply at the bits and pieces that need to be healed and aligned just a little bit more, or to really get in a bit deeper at another level, no matter what the motivation. One of the main reasons why I love teaching the Rainbow Bridge techniques is because Rainbow Bridge Phase 1, and sometimes a little bit of Phase 2 is needed, like I discussed. It guarantees that if you follow those steps properly with Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 and maybe a little bit of Phase 2, that you will induce weaving that service thread that builds you to triad. That thread is one of the creative threads. It's a divine feminine thread. It's a female thread. It has a plus polarity. So to me, teaching people Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 and maybe a little bit of Rainbow Bridge phase 2 if there's a calling for that as well. My translation of that is helping people to embody the divine feminine. So this brings me back to discussing that even though, yes, this is a solar pathway, it beautifully unifies spirit and matter, and beautifully unifies solar and matter, and it beautifully unifies the divine masculine and the divine feminine. That's the phrase I'm looking for. This technique beautifully unifies the divine feminine and the divine masculine, even though this is a solar ascension pathway and a proper one, a proper esoteric solar pathway. But it helps to weave in that personality service thread, which is a female thread. So you're witnessing the female ascension pathway with that process, the divine feminine rising, the divine feminine being integrated. There's many ways to describe the phenomenon I'm talking about through antikrana thread weaving and what the Rainbow Bridge techniques do. So coming back to that thread, that divine feminine thread, that personality service thread that builds you to triad, that is one of the creative threads that was withdrawn at the final degeneration of Atlantis, when hierarchy changed the parameters of evolution and initiation. So that was one of the threads that were withdrawn. And hierarchy changed the parameters of evolution and initiation for the human family to make it so you would emotionally and mentally need to be more healed and in a better place with resolution, with karmic imbalance, before you would be allowed to receive that thread. There's 3 creative threads. That's one of them. That's one of them. And it's female. It was the creative threads that were withdrawn because of the abuse of the creative principle that was going on around the degeneration of Atlantis. So one of the gifts in this technique, especially if you're mystically inclined, is connecting with a technique that will guarantee that if you just follow the steps properly, you will at least minimum be able to weave back in one of those creative threads, solar plexus to triad, abstract mind point in the triad, which is one of the divine feminine creative threads. Divine feminine initiation process through a solar pathway, and healing and clearing karmic imbalance, which is one of the keys to that occurrence. So I just wanted to explain that a bit more because I had a few questions around that as well. And don't worry, I will be creating more videos around that too. So coming to where this next feeds into, coming back to authenticity. And what I meant by the Rainbow Bridge techniques don't have bells and whistles. And when you do Rainbow Bridge, the rest takes care of itself. I'll start with the authenticity query. One of the other reasons I love teaching the Rainbow Bridge techniques is because they are just steps for working with your soul star chakra through a triangulation meditation process. But there is no dogma. There is no oaths to take. You're not going to be asked to do anything that's inauthentic to you. And the best part of it is phase 1 and phase 2 of the Rainbow Bridge techniques are available for free. So you can have a look at the techniques before you sign up for a proper tutoring class with me on these techniques, or you just might want to solo work with the Rainbow Bridge techniques yourself. The steps are available for free, and they have been properly tested and independently verified, and they continue to be independently verified. and they continue to be used with great success, with huge benefits for anybody who connects with the techniques properly and follows the steps properly. So what I love about the Rainbow Bridge techniques is it doesn't matter what pathway you do or do not have. There's not anything within the techniques that would make someone feel excluded or that they can't do these techniques, meaning you're not asked to do anything inauthentic, meaning I'll come back to the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water, meaning there are some people that love that mystical approach because that's how they're wired. But that actually isn't a part of the Rainbow Bridge technique steps, meaning, yes, I teach a very good foundation private course on that, but that's a separate course. That's not the Rainbow Bridge steps and meditation steps, meaning this is why I love the steps. There are some people who aren't wired that way. And why on earth should someone feel or be cut off from a proper ascension pathway if they don't want to mystically work with the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water? That's my point. That's my point, and why I love these techniques. There are some people who are wired different ways mystically. And I've had people come to me who couldn't continue with certain pathways because they were being told you have to renounce your faith to continue these teachings, or they were told they had to partake of a technique they didn't want to, meaning not authentic for them. You won't find that in the Rainbow Bridge techniques, meaning, no, I'll keep it that simple. I'll keep it that simple, and I'll keep it that clear. So like that, that's why this technique attracts people with very eclectic pathways, because it really helps people. In other words, whether you have an existing mystical pathway or not, because you don't have to, you will find these techniques beautifully fluid for starting the process of properly healing your internal foundations, aligning the chakras, and really starting to heal karmic imbalance, physically, emotionally, and mentally, starting that process more deeply and properly. So like that, if you've been looking for a proper ascension pathway, where maybe you were put off other pathways because there was things that you knew weren't going to be authentic to you, or that you didn't want to do, or things of that nature, then please do have a look into the Rainbow Bridge techniques, meaning that's why I love them. They're beautifully simple. They're beautifully simple. It's working with your soul star chakra and a meditation triangular process with phase 1, and that continues in different ways into phase 2. No oaths. You're not asked to do anything strange. You won't be asked to do anything that could possibly be inauthentic to you. These are very pure, non-interference techniques that would not interfere in any way, shape, or form with your authentic core belief system. And that's what I love about these techniques. Yes, they deeply heal and clear karmic imbalance and properly build the light body and induce proper antakarana thread weaving. But there's nothing in them that wouldn't make these techniques approachable to anybody. Meaning you can work mystically with the Devas of earth, air, fire, and water, but you don't have to as part of the Rainbow Bridge techniques. You might want to do Reiki, and you can, but you don't have to as part of Rainbow Bridge. You might want to do integrated energy therapy, but you don't have to as part of these techniques. That's my point. Beautifully pure and simple and straight to the point, and nothing that could not be properly integrated into your existing pathway or help you forge and find your authentic pathway. Meaning, as you work with these techniques, and especially if you work with the techniques properly enough to start inducing the weaving of that service thread, the practical manifestation of weaving that service thread that builds you to triad attracts in what is authentic to your service pathway. It does impact personal life as well, of course it does, it all connects. But that thread in particular helps to open doors, possibilities, synchronicities to really help start aligning you with your authentic service. I once had somebody, I was discussing this with somebody once, and they said, Chloe, you're talking about attracting in soul buddies. And yes, I suppose that's one way you could translate this, what I'm talking about, but it happens on such a deep level. Such a deep level. So on that note, I just wanted to see if there was anything else that I wanted to highlight as part of all of the overlapping queries. Yes, apologies. So I do. I have an upcoming Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 workshop starting in December. So the first class will be in December, the second class will be in March, and it goes deeply into the Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 techniques, practical application of the techniques, and other interesting topics as well, meaning different ways the techniques can be practically applied, proper usage of the techniques, and how that can even be translated to normal everyday life, and how it connects with and translates into normal everyday life, as well as mystical life and mystical seeking. So if you would like to avail of a tutoring in the techniques, meaning yes, the techniques are available for free, but if you would like to avail of a proper tutoring class with me on those techniques and a lot more than just those techniques, please do contact me through my website, www.chloefolan.com. Please email me with any queries. And at the time of creating this video, I only have 2 places left at that workshop. So please contact me soon if you would like to avail of my Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 workshop. And if you have any other queries, please contact me. I love hearing from people, communicating with people, and I love the questions and queries that I receive. They're always really good questions and insightful questions to have an opportunity to answer, or at the very least give a honest, educated, intelligent opinion on. So as always, I hope this video has been insightful. I hope it's provided some really good food for thought. And I hope it has answered some deeper questions that people may have had. On that note, 7 ray blessings to all, and wishing all a peaceful week.